Hello, everyone. Welcome to the panel that we are having today during the social finance vibe. And sorry for this technical me trying to remove the screen share. So we are starting the session on very interesting and timely topic, which is refugee financial inclusion. I have an excellent panel with me today, and I'm also very happy that in the world when sometimes we have only men-dominated panels, today we have a very 100% women-led. So this is also some very positive outcome for us. That we have a great expertise here, and we can share it with you. So for the session with us, we will try to make it interactive. There will be time for the questions at the end. But right now, I would like to give a voice to Suzanne Klink, who is a senior livelihood and economic inclusion officer at UNHCR, who is organizer of this panel and brought all those beautiful minds together. So Suzanne, if you would like to start, please.
Thanks a lot, Kasia. It's a big pleasure for me to open today's panel discussion on refugees' financial inclusion. Refugees' access to financial services is a fundamental component for their integration. It allows them to contribute to the host community as employee, as an entrepreneur, and as consumer. While the legal framework in Europe is rather enabling, administrative and practical barriers still persist, limiting refugees to seize their potential. Last year, UNHCR and the Microfinance Center joined forces to foster refugees' access to financial services and business development services in Europe. If you are interested to learn more about our joint work and how to engage, I invite you to have a look at the Microfinance Center's website, which I will post in the chat now, so that you can find more out about the topic. Please also feel free to reach out to Kaja or myself directly to explore opportunities for offering your services to refugees. Our discussion today will focus on challenges, on opportunities, and innovative approaches on refugees' financial inclusion. We will learn about good practices, first-hand experiences from refugees, and the business case for investing in refugees' financial inclusion. We have the privilege to count with the participation of Mikol Pistelli from the UNHCR, Aya El-Sarawi from ADIE, Martina Grigorova from Syscredit, Olga Shabina from the International Finance Corporation, Nadia Groshekova-Leruste from the Council of Europe's Development Bank, and hopefully also Sarah Faizi, a refugee entrepreneur living in Bulgaria, who's still trying to connect to the session. So my sincere thanks to the panelists for their time and to all of you for your interest. I now wish you a very fruitful session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, for this introduction. Unfortunately, Sarah is not with us, but I hope she can join at some point, and then because it will be great to hear her experiences as somebody who is arriving to the new country and starting a business, and she was really willing to share with us her experiences, but sometimes there is technology that gets on the way. It would be much easier if we meet face to face, but let's hope that it's not going to be a barrier, and she will join us. So right now, I would like to give a floor to Mikol, who is the Senior Financial Inclusion Coordinator at UNHCR, and has a really good experience and overview in saying why. Maybe I can ask you a question. Sorry, I'm not going to tell for you. So, but it would be great to hear from you about why is refugees financial inclusion vital? So why do you think this is something that needs to be promoted, and why it is necessary for the society to try?
Sure. Thank you very much, Kasia. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for the invitation. It's also great for me to see so many familiar names among the people attending. So to answer your question, access to financial services, which is really from a simple transaction account, which is the first step really towards financial inclusion, to additional products such as credit or insurance, is instrumental in helping refugees coping with the emergency that they are facing. So access to useful and affordable financial services also helps refugees building financial resilience throughout their displacement journey and better plan for their future, whether they decide to return home or stay in their country of asylum or resettle in a third country. Now, most refugees today live in countries where they are experiencing significant barriers to access formal financial services, and this prevents them from obtaining sustainable livelihoods through decent work as an entrepreneur or as an employee. We know that transactional account is often required, in fact, as well as access to other mainstream financial services, such as a credit to invest in a business activity. And then for those who wish to relocate or return home, they need access to loans to rebuild or to restart a business or paying for their journey. The demand for financial services for refugees is not always the same. It really evolves over time. There are different needs depending on the displacement phase and their future plans for migration. So at the time of arrival, the demand is really mostly for survival cash. So for housing, food, medical expenses, sometimes for repaying debt incurred during their escape. So this is what usually humanitarian aid can provide up to some extent, and wherever possible by partnering with the local financial service providers. But another important need at this time is to have affordable access to remittances from family that may be at home or in third countries. We are seeing how relevant this is now for the Ukrainians who were before receiving remittances from family abroad, and now for those who escaped, they are receiving them in Moldova, Poland, and other countries of asylum. Now, when refugees start to settle in the host countries, it is important for them to also access basic transactional accounts, as well as sometimes consumer credits, for example, to buy furniture, maybe even start up business equipment if they intended to stay in the country of asylum. Now, most refugees worldwide find themselves in a protracted displacement. So who are the protracted refugees? Well, these are those in which, so the term protracted means that there are at least 25,000 refugees from the same country that have been living in exile for more than 5 consecutive years. At the end of last year, there is an estimated 74% of the global refugee population that were in such protracted displacement. And so the more protracted their situation is, the more similar the financial services demand is to the one of the host country nationals. There is often need for credit for home improvement, or for those who are entrepreneurs, want to be entrepreneurs, having access to business loans, and then, of course, other products such as insurance or pension plans. Now, for refugees who are looking to return to their country or to resettle elsewhere, there are other important services that they need, such as transferable credit histories, transferable pension schemes. In particular, we know that access to cross-border loans or may then be reimbursable grants is also very relevant. If for refugees, for example, find employment in a third country, and so they are relocated, they need to pay for the journey. And so being able to access funds in the country of asylum and then pay the money back with the salary that they are earning from the new employment in the country of resettlement is equally important as it is difficult for them.
Great. Thank you very much for focusing also on the challenges, on what the refugees are facing. Could you maybe also say what would be the if you could give some recommendation to the financial services provider to make it easier, what would be the top recommendation of issues that you would like them to address?
Sure, maybe I can elaborate a little bit more on the challenges that they face, and then we can link up on how we can overcome those barriers. So back to the challenges. Refugees really share many of the challenges of the majority of migrants when it comes to access to and use of financial services. However, in addition to the many similar barriers, they're also confronted with some specific issues, which is due to their uncertain legal status, and in some countries also to limited rights to work and to move, which further restricts their access to mainstream financial services providers. So speaking of Europe, legislation has actually been very favorable, as it requires banks to offer basic payments accounts to all customers who are legally residents in the EU countries, including asylum seekers and refugees. However, as Suzanne was mentioning at the beginning, the application of this directive really depends on the bank's ability to quickly adapt their internal procedures while also complying with the Know Your Customer policies and under other international regulatory procedures. In the case of Ukraine, the European Banking Authority considers the compliance with the anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing obligation, which should not lead to the financial exclusion of customers who are considered to be legitimate. As under the EU law, financial institution can apply a simplified customer due diligence measure. And so when onboarding customers just for a basic transaction account, financial service providers may not need to obtain the customer passport to verify their identity. Instead, they may just be able to rely on alternative independent documentation, such as the evidence that the person is a refugee from Ukraine. However, this is a very special case. Most of the refugees do not really enjoy the same treatment. So generally speaking, and really outside the EU Temporary Protection Directive for Ukraine, we can really say that even wherever refugees are in the countries where they have a legal right to open a financial account, there is often a misalignment between the country's policies directives and the practice followed by the financial service providers. And there are also often inconsistencies within the country regulations too. At times, there are also institutions that may just be slow in simply adapting to new regulations. So it's not necessarily lack of will, and so it might take time to simply allow the refugee-specific ID to be included in the system as a valid proof of document. Now, besides the issue of identity verification, which is pretty huge, and all the proper documentation which are asked by the financial service provider, there is also another significant barrier to the refugees' financial access. And this is the lack of familiarity with these market segments by the local financial service providers. So institutions are often just unaware of the legal rights and the socioeconomic profile of refugees. So they lack information about their financial lives, and so whether a business case really exists for serving them. And then, whereas refugees live in remote settlements, although they are the minority, but many are, there are also just setup costs for providers to reach out to this population. However, just to conclude on the demand side, there are on the barrier side, there are also barriers specific to the demand side, so to the refugees, as many of them lack financial education. We know that it's not the case for many of the Ukrainians, but even those that are financially educated, they often lack information about the legal rights and the rule for local business registration, for tax payment, about the local market in general to be able to establish a business. They also often have an unstable income and they lack collaterals and the traditional credit history because of the inability to transfer credit information across border in most of the countries. And we know that financial service providers, also microfinance institutions, often require this type of information in order to provide a loan to a client. So back to the second part of your question, Kash, about what can we then do to remove, to overcome these barriers. So there is really a role to play for each stakeholder which is involved in the financial inclusion community. It is in fact very much required a concerted effort to overcome regulatory barriers, unleashing capital for investment, collecting relevant demographic, socioeconomic data for the refugee population, and then sharing good practices. This is what we're trying to do here with this panel. So speaking about what UNHCR is doing at this regard, so our primary role is to advocate with the policymakers and the regulators to support refugees' documentation to access financial services, to remove barriers to legal work and to formal financial services, as well as obtaining SIM cards for mobile money accounts and for transfer services. Now, policymakers and the financial regulators are really those who can create the enabling regulatory environment. They are the ones that can ensure that refugees have access to formal financial services while still ensuring a sound compliance with the KYC principles and procedures in their country. In fact, including refugees in the formal economy will contribute to a reduction of the money laundering, terrorism financing risks associated with the financial exclusion, because these people will not have to rely, as often happens, on high risk and informal financial services that actually may jeopardize the country's efforts to combat financial crimes. Now, in addition to working with policymakers and regulators, UNHCR also supports financial service providers willing to extend their services to refugees by providing or facilitating through third-party partners access to relevant demographic, socioeconomic data, providing logistical support when, for example, refugees live outside urban areas in settlements, or facilitating the setup of focus groups, business visits of refugee entrepreneurs. Now, in some countries, and in partnership with national regulators, we are also providing specific guidance to both financial service providers and the refugees about the rights of refugees in accessing formal financial services. And we do that by drafting informational material booklets or organizing workshops. We also do partner with several development financial institutions, with impact investors, and with governments to create some specific market-tailored solution through what are called the blended finance program. So essentially, the donors and the private sector can combine their funds for some scalable investment to address the specific economic and social challenges which are faced by both refugees and their host communities. And by doing so, they can also demonstrate that there is commercial viability in providing financial services for this population. And so at this regard, I just want to mention a couple of programs where UNHCR has been involved. One is a blended finance program that we set up together with Grameenkredit Agricole Foundation and the Swedish Development Agency, SIDA, in Uganda, which is targeting both refugees and host community entrepreneurs. This has been quite a successful program with very high repayment rates, and is composed of a lender guarantee technical assistance to financial service provider, and debt funding, which is provided by Grameen Credit Agricole Foundation to the selected financial institutions. There is also a new program which hasn't been launched yet, but I want to flag it to you because I'm sure that some financial institutions at the goal might be interested to hear. So there is it's recently been established the first equity fund by Developing World Markets, which is targeting both refugees and host community businesses in a number of countries. Most of the geographies are in Africa, a little bit in Middle East and South America, but they're also open to Europe. And so if among you there are financial service providers interested into equity investments and in supporting refugee entrepreneurs, you might perhaps soon have the possibility to apply for this funding facility. So more to follow. So now, I would like perhaps just to close with a few tips specifically addressed to financial service providers who may be considering extending their financial services to refugees. And these tips really come from practice, from information shared by other institutions across countries that have already been extending credit and other services to refugees. So first of all, depending on your internal policies and also your host country regulatory framework, you might need to do some adjustment to your internal procedure in order to serve refugee clients. You might also need to adapt some existing products to refugees' financial services needs. We know that there is no need to come up with a refugee loan product, but sometimes they might need to do some tweaks. Now, FSPs often have questions related to strategies to follow to reduce credit risk when it comes to migrants, to refugees specifically. Now, where every context is different, some of the practices followed by other financial institutions in this area, I think are giving us some useful example. So one of them is that you can just assess the refugees' intention to remain in the host countries or to relocate. And this can happen by conducting just regular business visits, which also allow to find out whether refugees may have imminent plans to return to their country of origin or to relocate. This seems to be, this is actually quite a simple step, and I know that it is very effective because it has been used by Al Majmoua, for example, in Lebanon, or Microfund for Women in Jordan, who have been serving thousands of refugees with essentially close to 100% repayment rates. You can also assess the refugees' profile, so in terms of the data that you may be able to collect through UNHCR or through local agencies that work with refugees on demographic, business skills, simply their personality. You can verify the regular sending of remittances, so to really help understand their cash flow. You can also consider allowing refugees guarantors or incentivize some local guarantors. And this is used by those providers that give loans to refugees who don't hold an active residency permit, and but they do so as long as they have a guarantor who has a valid residency permit. And again, this is often the case in the MENA region. And then finally, for this Ukrainian situation specifically, you might actually be able also to verify their credit history with financial service providers in their country, as this is a line of work where, for example, IFC is currently investing in.
Great. Thank you very much, Nicole, for this introduction. And now I would like to ask Aya about her experiences with ADI. Aya is Sharavi is a loan officer, and I think she is the best placed person to share from the microfinance point of view of what are the experiences and how do they support the refugee entrepreneurs in their financial inclusion journey. So, and why do you think financial inclusion for refugees is vital? Ella, please.
Hello, thank you so much, Katerina. So I'm going to present PowerPoint up. So does everyone see my presentation?
Yes, we see it.
Okay. So I am Aya. I'm a loan officer at ADI, and I'm going to present to you how does ADI support newcomers and refugees in France. To put you in context, ADI, due to its mission and its strong anchorage in less favored areas in France, we has always financed and provided support to migrant entrepreneurs, which represents about 20% of the customers ADI finances each year. Around 6,000 individuals. In 2017, ADI launched a specific program called Agir to address the needs of refugees. So we have three objectives: to foster refugees' social and economic integration, to promote the positive impact of refugees on French society, and to collaborate with grassroots organizations to capitalize and pool resources and know-how. To achieve these objectives, we put some actions. We have business and personal loans up to 12,000 euros. We provide non-financial services. We have a pool of 40 referents who interact and get trained. We are creating tools. We are using portraits of refugees customers in our communication campaign to use them as a role model for other entrepreneurs. And we also have partnerships with refugees support local organizations. So our achievement in 2021 compared to 2020, we have successfully financed 260 refugees financed in 2021. This is an increase of 21% compared to 2020. We had 204 business loans plus 56 personal loans. We had 192 new customers plus 68 renewals. We also have 283 refugees who has benefited from a non-financial service as advising, training, and coaching. And we have 591 support actions registered. So what are the challenges and opportunities that faced by immigrant entrepreneurs? They have many challenges like the lack of organizations helping to obtain work, the language and cultural barrier, the lack of digital knowledge, the complicated administrative system, the diplomas and work experience that are not recognized. So becoming an entrepreneur is difficult. Access to bank loans often impossible, especially if people have one-year visa. The opportunities that we have in France, there are many organizations helping to improve language skills, computer skills, and administrative rights. Their experience in home countries where small entrepreneurship is normal, the support of their community, and their resourcefulness. So small entrepreneurship can be a solution to a new career or other job, meanwhile improving language and other skills. I am a loan officer in Lyon, so we gathered some practical actions that we set up in Lyon. We are working hand in hand with local NGOs and advocating that small entrepreneurship can be a solution with low risk if well advised. We are involving our clients to promote entrepreneurship and microfinance in their community. We have one-on-one session by Chantal, who is a volunteer, in which she gives administrative support and advice on business development before and after creation with practical and a soft approach. And then we give access to loans by step-by-step approach, being flexible on guarantees, taking into account undeclared revenues and activities, and we also have loans without interest. The Agir group is an internal exchange of best practices and challenges, and we are very open to new approaches by trial and error, and then we can measure our achievements by migrant survey. I would like to present to you Maria, who is an event catering and dressmaker and hairdresser. She is an Armenian woman. She is 44 years old, and she is in France since 2010. At the beginning, she only had small jobs, and since 2019, she had an undeclared activity. In 2020, Adi helped her to formalize part of her activity because she didn't have all the diploma necessary to have her hairdresser boutique, and to finance her professional tools. In 2021, she benefited from financial support to face the COVID crisis, and in 2022, she obtained her hairdressing diploma, and now she is fully declared and sustainable activity. She encounters some administration issues because she is a small entrepreneurship and her visa is renewed every year. Up.
Thank you, Aya, for that. Maybe I can ask you a question. What would you recommend to the other MFIs when that would like to offer their product to and work with refugees?
To really take into consideration what the refugees did in their home countries, what are their experience, to take into consideration all the undeclared activities they have, to be more flexible on guarantees and to be more flexible on the loan criteria.
Perfect. That sounds like a very good advice to all the MFIs that would like to work more with refugees. And I see that Sarah joined us, Sarah Faisi, who is, thank you very much, Aya, for
Hello,
that.
everyone.
Hello, Sarah. Welcome to this panel. I'm so glad that you managed to join us after some difficulties with the tech. But very pleased that you are with us. And Sarah,
thank you so much. I'm also happy.
Perfect. You are entrepreneur in Bulgaria. I would like to ask you if you can share a little bit your story with us. Where are you coming from? How did you end up in Bulgaria? And what are the activities that you are pursuing right now while in Bulgaria?
Okay, I'm Sarah Faizi from Afghanistan. I'm living in Sofia, Bulgaria. I came to Bulgaria in 2016. I am a mother of two kids. My second kid born here in Bulgaria. He was a little sick from during the birth. And because of that sickness, we went to Germany and we were there more than 1 year. Came back from Germany in 2018, and from that time I started classes in Bulgarian language, and also I took class for business here in Sofia, and also my field is business administration. I did my bachelor degree in my country. So when I was in my classes in business section, I decided to make my own business because I'm a lone mother and it was difficult for me to work in another offices and organizations. So I decided to do my own business, and I start Caritas Sofia helped me, and for the money and financial help, I took help from microfinance. Now I have a small restaurant in the Sofia, center of Sofia. It's about 1 year, and everything is going well with me.
Perfect. It's good to hear that everything is going good. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about how it was for you to access the financial services. What were maybe the challenges and what went well for you?
Actually, I was not aware about this program in Sofia. I searched a lot, but I was joined in some organization here who are working for refugees, and from Women Council for Refugee, they introduced me microfinance, and we met there. There was a program. They invite me also, and we met there. I talk about my plans, and they accept. And for me, I can say it was like a easy way to make contact with them and to take their trust on me, and everything went well on that time.
That's really good to hear. Is there anything else that you would like to maybe share? Because we have a lot of people who are the financial service providers, and what you would give them as an advice if they would like to work with people like you. I already said what they looking at and how that it needs to be a little bit more holistic look, but it will be really interesting to hear from you.
According to me, it is a really, really good plan for refugees and for foreigners for taking loan, because before to know microfinance, I searched for many other, I can say, organization for loan. They are taking like high percentage of profit for them. So this one helped me a lot because of the less percentage of profit for them, and I'm so happy with this program. But yeah, I can say for the staff that they have to introduce themselves in so many places where refugees are living, or they are in touch with them, to know that there is a program and organization they are helping with loan. Like me, I was not aware. After 4 years being in Bulgaria, I was not aware about this program. And Council of Women Refugee, they introduce us.
Great. Yes. So and so that's so that means that there needs to be more information that is being shared about the
because
available.
I about 4 years I was not aware about them, and also I didn't hear from someone that there is a program by the name of microfinance, and they are giving loan with less percentage of profit. So I was not aware, but it was my luck that I went to the Refugee Council for Women, and I become aware from them.
Yes, and I know that I have Martina here with us, and Martina, I will pin you maybe as well if you if you turn on your video. So I know that you worked with Martina, and so you have a good experiences with the CIS credit, right? So what for me, Martina, I don't see you, so I don't know if you are here or not. So I under opinion, yes, Martina is here.
Do you see me now? Okay,
yeah, I see you now. So yes, so thank you for inviting Sarah, and her experience is indeed a very very moving, because it seems to be a successful story, that it's really a good way to promoting the financial services for the refugees. And can I ask you, how did you include those services as CIS credits? What was the thinking behind it?
Yes, I'm very happy that Sarah succeeded to join us. She received actually funding from our partner organization, Microfund. Now we are together as institutions. And she received funding after attending in one course, as far as I know, because she's speaking with our front officer, Raina. And this was education organized actually by UNHCR Bulgaria, also from other NGOs that have identified potential clients for MFIs. And this is the crucial thing that for me, as representative of financial institution, I need these partnerships in order good examples and motivated refugees and migrants to be recognized. Because when people are coming just to our office, we don't know them. It's, of course, this is a risky target group. And really, this partnership that we have with UNHCR, with NGOs that are dealing with refugees is crucial in this process. I could also share that for me as MFI, the most important thing in assessing the risk in one business idea is the motivation of entrepreneur. And what I see is that, especially in Bulgaria, there are a lot of motivated refugees that would like to start from scratch and build their life here. For example, now I have in my daily life my colleague Alina, who is a Ukrainian refugee. She is our front officer right now. And what I see is that only in 3 months, she is already speaking Bulgarian. She's already renting her own apartment and she's paying for this. And she's working with us to have her salary. And this is really very inspiring to see. And this motivation I see in many refugees here. And this is the most important. In general, from my perspective, refugees they need a lot of assistance. They need assistance in paperwork to receive their permits to stay. They need assistance in language courses, in entrepreneurial skills. Sarah is very financially, it's good in financials, but there are many who are not so good and need additional education, and this is a process. This process couldn't be taken by the MFI because this is a lot of work. And this is where these partnerships with NGOs and state agencies are coming. What I see is that in last year, there are already some programs that are encouraging such partnerships because they're really crucial, like the one of Council of Europe Development Bank, that was open a few months ago for provision of grants for such partnerships establishment. And I think that this is the first step, this partnership to be supported financially. And the second step in finding the appropriate financial thing for refugees is really the products that we could offer. Here, the tricky part is that with our normal funding, we could not take much risk. I think that risk-sharing instruments are the best fit for vulnerable groups. And this is what I expect from the ministry at European level to be thought about, just what exact financial instrument, core risk-sharing financial instrument to be created. Because, for example, Sarah received funding through our financial instrument that we have with the Fund of Funds. So the programs, the operational programs here, the European Social Fund are taking big part of the risk together with us. And this is the direction that for me is important.
Perfect. Thank you, Martina, for that. Maybe we will have more panelists that are going to discuss on the macro level what instrument could be available and what solution. But maybe I would like to hear from your experiences what challenges do you have at the level of that you are operating, and what could be done to overcome them?
Well, in dealing with refugees and migrants, it depends on where actually they're coming from, which country. Because, for example, from the Middle East, there is some barriers according to the anti-money laundering law that in some of the banks here is very important, and they are not willing to open account for refugees from these areas, which is a great problem for us because, for example, we are only dealing through bank accounts. Of course, the lack of entrepreneurial skills is also a barrier, but again, this partnership with NGOs could overcome this. And the lack of collateral that many of refugees are facing could also be very good addressed through appropriate financial instruments. Something that you already have discussed is the access to credit bureaus in order to be able to really assess the credit risk, which for some of the countries is already available, like Ukraine, for example. So what I could see is that I see the light in the tunnel for this target group and for us as MFI to provide funding to this group. And there are challenges, of course, but I think that there is a way there to be overcome.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And maybe, as you mentioned, the credit bureau and the transferability of the data, I will ask Olga Sherebina from IFC to tell a little bit more of the innovative approaches that the IFC is developing right now to support the refugees' financial inclusion.
Yes, thank you, Kasia. I'm traveling now and joining from very sunny Washington, so it's good morning on my side to you all. Yes, for those who don't know, International Finance Corporation is a part of the World Bank Group. It's one of the largest global financial institutions. We are focused on supporting private sector, but also have development effect in terms of job creation, financial inclusion, support to SMEs, and so on. So I will share some experience, and I do have slides. We'll share some experience of IFC on financial inclusion of refugees in different countries. I don't see you now, but I hope, that would not be a problem. So I will share several examples how IFC is working with refugees communities, is with financial institutions in host countries, and we do two sets of activities. One of them is on the advisory side, when we work with the government or with the sector-specific institutions, where we try to tackle some of the barriers and some of the challenges that are preventing refugees from getting access to credit. On the other side, we as a financial institution are working very closely and partnering with banks in host countries, and we can do investments in financial institutions or in companies that are either hiring a lot of refugees or that are having programs to support refugees, and so on. So I will share these two different sets of experience. So I will actually start with something that is very dear to my heart, and this is the latest experience that we have in Poland. I think when Nicole was speaking, she mentioned that access to credit history is one of the bigger challenges, because when refugees come to host country, sometimes it is impossible to track their credit history. And that's one of the prerequisites that's missing for the financial institution. We as IFC understand that this is a problem. And so we work on the project that we call digital data corridors. You could see Ukraine and Poland. And so in Ukraine, we worked with 3 private credit bureaus, which have been operating in Ukraine for the last 10 years. They collect data from approximately 85% of all the borrowers in Ukraine, and these credit bureaus continue to operate, and they are very modern. They continue to operate even during the war times, and they have a wealth of information on basically 85% of the population. Again, established all the legal frameworks and procedures how to share this information on Ukrainian citizens according with the latest European legislation. And so as part of the maritime legislation, they are allowing to share this information cross-border. And so in Poland, we partnered with BIK, with BIK, to connect Ukrainian credit bureaus with BIK. And so the way it works, let me push ahead. So the way it works, the Ukrainian refugees provide their consent to the financial institutions, to the banks in Poland, and say, we have credit history back home, we give you consent to check it. And after that, the financial institution can go to BIK and request that BIK provides this credit information from Ukraine to this financial institution. So the project has been fully operational since June 1st, 2022. The credit reports that financial institutions are getting through BIK from Ukraine are basically the same credit reports as you would get for a Polish citizen. All the requests are done via API, open web, and so on. And so there is no issue or no delay, and you could get the same report as you would get for a Polish citizen. You could check two sets of information. One set is on KYC, know your client. And so oftentimes the refugees do not have all the sufficient, supporting documents. And so this is an important set of information, not only for the banking institutions, but also for, when they look for accommodation, for the long-term accommodation, when they look, for example, for insurance. And so their KYC data can be verified and checked. And another one is the real credit history, credit reporting from Ukraine. Oftentimes we hear, well, it's not the same because, the customers may behave differently. But again, as a starting point, that's an excellent starting point for a credit officer to start looking into a particular case of refugees and see what's the credit history, what's the pattern of behavior for this particular citizen back at home. And so once again, this project is fully operational. The banks do not have any barriers to approach credit history through BIK, and we only encourage that this is done. So once again, this is how it's done. From the legal perspective, there is a form of client consent that the client provides to the bank in the host country. Then the bank approaches the credit bureau in Poland, and then the credit bureau in Poland reaches out to the credit bureau in Ukraine. So this is the path. This project is already available in 7 countries. So it's available in Poland, all the countries of the Baltic Sea, which is Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Georgia, and Czech Republic. And we are working on more countries to add. And once again, it's fully operational. Use it. Some other examples. So this is an example of our advisory work, which was done with credit bureaus, with the National Bank of Ukraine, with Narodowy Bank Polska. And so it's all done on the advisory side, where IFC provides best practices of how it could be done, because we saw this experience elsewhere in the world, or we developed these similar products and so on. So this is one example. Another example I will bring from other regions, from various refugee waves in different countries. So one of the example is from Latin America. And so, as you know, there was a crisis with Venezuelan refugees in Colombia and Peru. And so starting from 2019, we've been implementing projects with local financial institutions by Bancamia and Financiera Cofinanza. Our first big role with these financial institutions was to basically help the financial institutions with market research when it comes to refugees. Because oftentimes there are a lot of uncertainties, or there are a lot of myths about what's going on. People, reiterate some of the disbeliefs, that they have about refugees. And so as a financial institution, we would want to rely on a very solid data, on the proper market research about the financial needs of refugees, what gaps they have, what's their spending patterns, and so on. And after that, when we have this wealth of data on the particular set of refugees in a particular country, then we can structure the value offer that the bank can integrate into value proposition specifically tailored to address the needs of this group of refugees in this particular country. Then we normally go to the pilot of the solution, the assessment of the solution, and then the bank continues to roll out this product more broadly. And so we did this pilot in Latin America with Bancamia, and as a result, Bancamia is currently serving more than 7,000 refugees with a variety of products, including savings, including microloans. Kofi Annan hired additional 5 credit officers because there was a pool of refugees that were coming to ask for loans. So that's one of the examples. A very similar example with Syrian refugees in Lebanon, where IFC partnered with Al Majmoua. And so we provided actually both sets of services. We worked on the advisory side, and again, we did the institutional assessment, strategy, design, the product review and design, piloting, and so on. But also we ended up seeing a formal opportunity to invest so that we can support further on lending from this bank to consumers, including Syrian refugees. And so the impact that we assessed was that the microloans portfolio of this bank grew by more than 20% from the initial 11 something prior to the project to more than 15% of the total portfolio after the project. That the portfolio of very small enterprises in this bank again grew by 1%, but in case of this particular set of refugees, it's quite significant. Again, these very small enterprises employed more than almost 1,000 refugees and 1,000 non-refugees. So again, we saw it as support to host community members working with refugees. We have a huge program in Africa. One of them is Kakuma Kolobey Challenge Fund, where IFC partnered with many other organizations, including UNHCR, Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund, and so on. And the services that we provided had 2 parts. It had a part of a grant to expand the operations of this fund in the Kakuma refugee camp, and another part is advisory services on business development for the banks. And now IFC is considering investments in a bank in Kenya and also in a bank in Uganda, where we would work on investment together with advisory on how to expand the non-financial services to refugees, to build the capacity to enhance sale to refugees, and so on. And a very similar experience in Turkey, where IFC provided an investment facility of more than $200 million to partner banks, in this case, Guarantee and Akbank, to lend to MSMEs in the provinces in the southern Turkey, which are most affected by the influx of Syrian refugees under temporary protection program. And so this is, I will stop sharing. So what we worked with shows that there are risks associated with lending to refugees, but nevertheless, if we do the proper due diligence, if we get most of the information that we can get from the market, from the refugees, about their needs, about their payment capacity, and so on, then it's possible to structure a valid product offering to refugees. Because for refugees, they want to integrate into the society, they want to be self-reliant, they want to have jobs, they want to be able to pay their bills. And so I fully agree with Martina. The refugees, especially from what we see again from Ukraine, are highly motivated to start normal life and get back to normal life. And so we actually expect more loyalty and more, normal behavior patterns in case they have a chance to borrow money, whether it's for personal needs or whether it's for business needs. And we, again, separately could consider entrepreneurship support and MSME support. And so I think the second key is also what Martina mentioned, is partnering with someone, whether it's IFC, EBRD, EIB. So together there is a better chance to structure a risk-sharing facility or another facility that would be, possible to roll out for refugees. So it can be done. Don't rely on myths, rely on solid data. Work with someone who can help you and who can structure the product for refugees, and we can do it jointly. Very positive message. That's I would end with.
Thank you very much, Olga. We like positive messages because sometimes the issue is very difficult, and of course it's not easy because we're talking about people's life and moving from one situation and building it from scratch in another. Maybe because you presented a lot of experiences from the different countries, so maybe I would be interested of knowing your opinion about what innovative approaches we can deploy in Europe. Of course, we heard about the data corridors, which is one. But from your experience globally, have you seen something that could be an interesting idea for Europe?
Well, I think with the development of digital services, I think there is a chance not to rely on paper trail as much as in old days. And so the digital data corridors is just one example how the digital financial services can be employed in this particular case. And so I think for refugees, access to digital financial services is also key. I don't know how innovative it is, but it's one thing to access digital financial services in host country, but it also super important for them to be able to send money back home to support their families who were not able to leave the country. And so I think my bet would be on innovative approaches in digital services.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And we have last presenter with us, Nadia. From Nadia, I don't. Can you? Because I see you as a guest speaker, but I don't see you to pin you. I see you now. Yes, sorry, you just appeared there. So.
Okay.
Nadia, welcome, and I know that you are representing very important institution when we're talking about the refugee matters. So. Maybe you can tell us a little bit what the CEB is working on, and especially with the focus on microfinance and business development services.
With pleasure. Thank you, Kasia. So good afternoon, everyone. Really happy to see you, and thank you for inviting me to this event. A brief introduction to my role. I'm a country manager at the Council of Europe Development Bank. And I'm responsible for Bulgaria, for Serbia, and for Luxembourg. Normally, my role is to cover the credit business of the bank. However, we have a separate fund called the Migrant and Refugee Fund, which we utilize for migrants and refugees, essentially to help them find a new life in the country members of the Council of Europe and integrate and build their future there. I'll tell you a couple of things about the Migrant and Refugee Fund at first, and then I'll talk about some specific projects. So you have to excuse me. I'll read it from my notes because it's just a few framework information which I think it's important to note before. So the Migrant and Refugee Fund, it was established in 2015. So basically this is in response to the original influx of migrants from Africa and from the Middle East in the refugee crisis in 2014. Its scope or its mandate is to support CEB member states in accommodating migrants and refugees who arrive on their territories. Now, in 2022, we extended the scope. Obviously, because of the war, we started helping Ukrainian refugees and third country citizens arriving from Ukraine with the same fund. In terms of where the money comes from of the fund, so we have 22 member states are contributing to the MRF, as we call it. Obviously, the more affluent economies are the biggest donors. So we have Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Luxembourg, and Norway, who are the biggest donors to the Migrant and Refugee Fund. And essentially, the process now going more into the project. The process is relatively straightforward and flexible with the approval of funding for projects, as long as we have a partner organization in the country that is the project host, so to speak. Now, when we talk about the projects and the inclusion, I have to say that the CEB, we haven't provided microfinance on its own to organizations in the host countries, but we have supported financial inclusion in other ways. So we're talking about developing skills on one hand side to build a business. So this is something that we have done in Slovakia and in Lithuania and in Serbia actually as well, where we have supported the creation of training facilities with programs for workshops to explain, I suppose, basic skills, basic concepts to migrants about money management, and train them in the concepts as to how to start a business. And I mean, often people master already the basic concepts of creating a business, since in many countries where they come from, they have been business owners. It's just that there's other factors that have made them flee those countries. But basically, we're talking about explaining or preparing workshops as to how to access financing in the specific country that is hosting, which is finding addresses, understanding application forms, just practical matters as to how to set yourself up as a business on one hand side, and then how to obtain funding. So that's one example of financial inclusion. But like I said, it's not a package microfinance instrument that we propose, but it's an enabler to migrants and refugees to then apply for microfinance. Then the other project that is also actually on my portfolio in Bulgaria for financial inclusions is since earlier this year, where we work with the International Organization for Migration, with the headquarters of IOM Bulgaria in Sofia. So there we provided a grant which was utilized by IOM to help build childcare centers in several towns in Bulgaria, where Ukrainian refugees would be employed as essentially as childcare professionals inside this center. So this is, again, it's financial inclusion is in terms of the making these people employable. So it's not employable in the country. It's not necessarily providing credit, but once they are employable, they can show employment history and they pay their taxes. These are good things that lenders like to see. So so these are the projects that I can talk about. I don't want to talk too long. I mean, I'm happy to take questions, and I also have a couple of questions for the panel for later on, if I may. But
sure. Let me just ask you one more question, and then there will be time for question and answers. I think we have time for that. I just very fast. So, what do you think would be a good way to kind of increase the refugee financial inclusion? What could be done from the?
I think it's visibility. So I thought about it. I think I mean, right now we're in a difficult time because nobody wants to, with high interest rates. It's difficult to borrow, not just for migrants, and for all of us. It's difficult to borrow right now. So let alone for people who are in a very precarious situation. But if we're talking about really increasing the financial inclusion, increasing the microfinance penetration in the migrant and refugee communities, I think it is visibility. I think we need to work on jointly on more media coverage and programs about success stories. I think that's what I'm not seeing much of this personally. So I think microfinance is still considered sort of a niche market, if you will, and I don't think it enjoys as good representation all over the media. Starting from traditional media, ending with obviously with social media. I just don't know people know enough about it, and organizations who have the capacity, who have the budget, who have the appetite perhaps as well, they may be still a bit risk averse to that. So I think for me, finding avenues to improve the really to showcase success stories and to make it more obvious in the lender community is very important. I mean, this holds for us here, and just for all of the microfinance institutions. So it's a delicate market, and it's difficult for private actors. Usually, you need some kind of public participation there, and it's also linked to policy making as well. So to make it happen, yeah, to me, this is the key. It's not easy. I mean, sorry, it's very broad, but it's. I think there's a way to go there. So yeah.
Perfect. That's great. And I think this is the moment that we can open the floor. If there are any questions from the audience, please either there is an indication how you can ask the question through the moderation, or you can just ask it in a chat, and then I will get to the panel. But Nadia, you had a question, so maybe we can start with your question, and then I will moderate the chat.
Okay. It links to sort of your questions. What do we do to increase the financial inclusion? Coming back to this visibility. So I just wonder if we know whether there's any statistics on microfinance. I've just not found statistics on on how how these loans perform, and just basically, I don't know how centralized the whole information is. Just like when you look for microfinance, I don't know if anyone, or is it like every organization has its own, and how do people publish this kind of thing about yes, I suppose what the number of individuals who achieve with microcredits and defaults. Obviously, there will be how people deal with defaults, etc. So any data on this? What is the data universe of microfinance? If anyone knows about this.
So maybe I can quickly just answer. So there is no global repository as MIX used to be for microfinance when it comes to microfinance for refugees. But there are indeed data available publicly. For example, if you go on the website of Kiva, was being one of really the first lenders to extend their portfolio to refugees, and they've been publishing some reports that you can download online. Among the microfinance institutions they were supporting, there were also Al-Majmua that was mentioned before, but also Olga and others. And the data show actually that the repayment rates of refugees are very much at par with the one of nationals. So we have data that confirm that actually credit risk is pretty much the same. And that's not because it's been backed up by a guarantee, but it's because if financial institutions have access, as we were saying before, to appropriate information, to data, and they feel confident about doing some pilot tests and then learn and then expand and really target those refugees that look more creditworthy, while at the same time be flexible enough to adapt their policies. Refugees are indeed able to repay loans. And then at UNHCR, we are also collecting data. So again, we do not have a comprehensive report. Maybe one day soon we will be actually publishing the data that have been collected, but we have evidence from a number of microfinance institutions across countries that state the same. On the call, I see that there is Filippo of Grameen Credit Agricole Foundation, who just returned from a trip to Uganda, where he was assessing the performance of the financial institutions that they are investing in. They're targeting both the refugees and those community, and probably he can also speak about what's the portfolio quality there, and we have data similar in many other countries. So information that we have collected, and it's not just anecdotal evidence, is really portfolio data, show that refugees are not as risky as we perceive them, but actually they're entrepreneurs and they are perfectly capable of repaying a loan.
Maybe I could take the question of other Kasia about the effective financial instrument. How would it look like from my perspective? The answer actually is very easy. I have a clear plan for entering this target group, refugees. So for me, the effective financial instrument should look like the one that we have already for vulnerable groups. What does it mean? It means that the instrument should be risk sharing. In our case, the fund of funds is our partner and is using money from the operational programs and the European Social Fund. They're taking up to 85% of the risk of each loan and are providing the funding for each loan up to 85%. And our job is to assess the clients and to manage this portfolio, to identify the potential clients. And in this partnership that I mentioned already with NGOs, we could identify bigger groups of potential clients, refugees and migrants. The big problem here is that our financial instrument is valid until the end of 2023. So we have limited time, and still we don't know how it will proceed further. But if you're asking about the perfect instrument, it is this. And with some support for partnerships between NGOs, state agencies and municipality agencies and microfinance institutions. This is the perfect picture for me.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me now. Yes, great. Aya, maybe you also would like to react to this question, because as MFI, you may have an idea of what could be the good solution.
I think it depends on the country and the administrative process of every country, because I don't think we can just have one financial instrument for all the EU. I know that in France, it's very complicated to how can I say this? It's very complicated. The administrative process is very complicated for refugees. This is very complicated to have loans, very complicated to have access to housing, to jobs, etc. So for me, the effective financial instrument would be the same as Martina, just every solution we have for marginalized groups, we can open it to refugees. We in ADI have something called group loans, and this is loans for marginalized groups to help them create a project, and we can put it as well for refugees. It's a sort of a loan that helps everyone participate in funding a project. I don't know if it's very clear or not.
Well, I think it is. It's definitely something that could be looked into. And when we're talking about the instrument that we could use for the financial inclusion of refugees, I don't see any question, but maybe I ask you a question. How do you think the financial inclusion of refugees could be increased from each of your very distinct point of view? Because some of you work directly with the stakeholder group, some of you work on the policies. So it would be very interesting. It will be very interesting to know, how do you see it? Maybe I will then start asking because it's so. Olga, would you like to start?
Thank you, Kasia. On our side, IFC is very committed to see how we can further support refugees, Ukrainian refugees, not only in Poland but in neighboring countries. And so we are considering various options. And so as we speak right now, we launched a very extensive market research in Poland, and we are launching similar market studies in Romania and Moldova. These are the top 3 countries with who are the main host communities for refugees. We are starting this market research with the objective to get more granular, more specific information on refugees' financial needs, financial behaviors, and so on. And so we expect that the research will take several months. And when we have the data, we will be able to structure potentially financial instruments with local financial institutions to cater to the needs, not only of refugees, but to cater to the needs of, let's say, consumers who require access to credit. So again, it's not as, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. So we understand that, it will take some time. And in this particular case, time is super valuable because, again, we see that the war is not ending. There are, further consequences taking part. The winter is close. The Ukraine energy infrastructure is getting destroyed. And so we see that there might be more refugees coming to host communities because of the events. But unfortunately, we have to spend this time on getting this data. Otherwise, Because again, as a financial institution ourselves, we cannot expect banks to take inconsiderate risks. We want to make sure that if we structure something, that would be beneficial for refugees, but also would not hinder and reflect badly on the bank's balance sheet. So happy to work with local commercial banks and have these discussions of how we can cooperate and partner in structuring. As I said, it's not only for refugees. I think Nadezhda mentioned that it's difficult not only for refugees, but also for Polish citizens to borrow. And we know how the Polish macroeconomy is doing right now. And so it doesn't have necessarily, like, you can't tag it Ukrainian, credit instrument only. So it might be a general consumer lending with some of the, funds attached for Ukrainian refugees. So again, if there are any representatives of commercial banks, I'm happy to discuss this forward and take it offline.
Great, thank you. Nicole, can I ask you next?
Yeah, sure. This comes back a bit to what I was saying at the beginning. So definitely agree about the need for more market assessment. UNHCR has in fact established a partnership with the IFC to expand, and this is on market assessment on the demand and the supply, and this is also beyond the Ukrainian situation. We're really focusing on also the Venezuela situation and a number of countries now in Africa. UNHCR, as I mentioned, we are here to support financial service providers with data. So if you have an interest, you have Suzanne here, who's our coordinator for the European portfolio. So absolutely get in touch with her. We will be very happy to share what we can. Usually is aggregate demographic, socioeconomic information. Then you can see if there is a need to go deeper and to look for other data. For Europe, we should really take advantage of the favorable legal framework, especially for the Ukrainian situation. Again, this is not the case for the majority of refugees elsewhere. So we're kind of really have a really great opportunity to seize. And as we heard, there are already some facilities available. Again, I was mentioning before, there is now an equity fund facility. If any of you is interested into equity investment and the refugees, get in touch. There might be also opportunities there, and I'm sure there will be more opportunities to come. Now, I understand that the quick, win-win is to ask for a credit guarantee, loan portfolio guarantee, of course. I understand why, and I understand it can be very useful. But again, I really want to stress the point that we should not equate that in order to consider lending to a refugee, you need access to a guarantee. In fact, the microfinance institution I was telling you about before, when they started to lend to refugees, none of them had access to guarantee. Even IFC came later to Al Majmoua to provide the guarantee. Al Majmoua had already thousands of refugees that were very accessing a loan and having a very good repayment rates. However, within the refugee population, there are those that are more vulnerable. So those ones definitely could be youth, it could be, SMEs, or it could be a specific group that indeed doesn't have financial education or business skills. So I understand that for those you might want indeed to look for a guarantee, but let's just not think of refugees as a homogeneous group of vulnerable, credit risky people. That's not what data says. We really need to segment, learn, understand, and then take action.
Super, thank you for that input. Aya, what would it be for you to increase financial inclusion?
To increase financial inclusion, I think just giving the opportunity to everyone to have a chance to try, to success or not, just to try, because I understand that it can be difficult for someone to be an entrepreneur if he doesn't have the business skills or everything. But if we provide him with a non-financial service, we advise him, we are coaching him, and then we are providing a financial service, we are increasing his chance to success. So I think just giving the chance to everyone to try, and giving the chance to everyone to have to try and the error, because yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Nadia?
I will say a few words and then I'm sorry I have to jump off, but I think, so for me is what I said earlier. I think I'm just adding up on what colleagues already mentioned. So I absolutely agree that migrants and refugees is a very heterogeneous group. So we need to have this mindset, as Nicole mentioned, that we can't treat them the same way. So certainly people will have different risks depending on where they come from, what happened to them. I think so. That's one. So have this mindset about the differences. Secondly, I mentioned to you before the visibility. So the visibility to institutions about data of success stories of microfinance success stories. But then also vice versa. I think what Martina mentioned is also important, because we need to bring the institutions who have clear concepts also to the vulnerable people, because the two need to know about each other. So I think we need to. There must be a mechanisms of how people find out about I don't know, about IPC credit or CIS credit or any other. We have a couple of other microfinance. So when people arrive, they need to know right away where they can ask for a loan, for a microfinance loan. So to me, this is really the visibility two ways: institutions to migrants and refugees, and migrants and refugees to institutions, and again this data and visibility, just data circulating more all over the place, and visibility campaigns. So this to me are really the factor. So I have to say thank you very much, and I'll leave you here, but thank you once again, and have a good rest of the day. Enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much, Nadia.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Martina, can I also ask for your opinion on that matter?
Sure. What I have personally initiated in this direction is joint applications for different type of grants that are available for support of partnerships. What I mean, for example, a couple of months ago, I contacted the Sofia municipality, which is really great success. Also the biggest NGO in Bulgaria, to jointly apply for grants, and this grant to be used for education of migrants and refugees, for popularization of what we are doing and how they could access funding actually, and of course for part of it to be for digitalization of us as MFI in the part of access to data, like the one that Olga mentioned, like to have access to credit bureaus in different countries. And I think that this should be granted, because this technical assistance for receiving loan, the refugees and migrants, is really crucial. And after that, what I'm working in direction of this financial instrument that we are using to be prolonged in the future, in the next period. And if such programs for grants and for technical assistance, for partnerships, and such financial instrument is available, I think that it would be really great. And I think that refugees and migrants would have sustainable access to funding.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Suzanne, I hope you agree with me that it was great, like a summary of all the discussion, but maybe I would also like to, as you are very engaged in the project and you're leading it from the European perspective to get your last words on what would be the best to increase the financial inclusion in Europe. And that would be our ending, so the cherry on the cake.
Thanks, Kasia. I think all has been said already. I would just like to stress again the need for awareness raising, also with regards to access to bank accounts, because many frontline officers are not aware of it. And if a refugee has no access to bank accounts, of course, they can also not access credit. So, I mean, it's really a basis, and we need to ensure that financial service providers are aware of the rights of refugees and asylum seekers to access financial services. Also, the lack of information that several colleagues mentioned among the refugee community is something that really needs to be addressed through the different means in order to ensure that refugees really have a full understanding, not only of their rights, but as Martina also mentioned, and Olga, I think, about the economic ecosystem of the country of asylum and the different services that are available. And the last point, as Martina also mentioned, the multi-stakeholder approach. I think it's really important not to work as one single institution and trying to find out solutions for everything, but really have joint approaches in order to ensure that the different challenges that refugees face when accessing financial services can be tackled, like access to language, access to information, access to business development services, access to childcare for business setup and employment. So I think it's really important to work together with like-minded and interested stakeholders in this regard. And from the UNHCR side, we are more than happy to support this in order to help build multi-stakeholder partnerships and to ensure that effective access to financial services can be granted. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for this panel and sharing all your insightful knowledge with us. And thank you for all the participants. I hope it was you heard something that is inspiring, new, and then you can take it forward to your work. So thank you very much. This is not the end of the conversation. Well, this is the end of the panel, but definitely not the end of the conversation. And yes, so a big thank you to all the panelists, and I hope to see you tomorrow during the second day, as the announcement just came in. So thank you very much, and I wish you a wonderful afternoon.